Welcome to the Watchman Report, world news from a biblical standpoint, the biblical standard on current events, on prophecy, moral and social issues. And in this episode, we explore the fall of Eastern Rome and the rise of Islam.
Now, the mechanism for this divine judgment would take place in the rise of Islam, and its final phase would be the Ottoman Empire. So we're going to now look at Revelation chapter 9. Revelation chapter 9 provides us the prophetic symbols of the rise of Islam in the East. And they were going to be the pricking briars on Constantinople. But we're going to come to its final phase, and we're going to look in verse 14, where it says, "Loose the four angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates." Now, rivers symbolize nations. Okay, they symbolize nations or empires that inhabit their banks. Now, the river Euphrates is going to represent that latter phase of Islam that's going to be embodied by the Turks, the Turkish tribes that stripped Byzantium of its territories over several centuries. Now, the four angels that you see there in verse 14, we can prophetically see that they're going to be the four Turkish divisions that occupied the great river Euphrates. Now, before I show you the four Turkish divisions, as we look at them, just notice how the horn of the goat is moving and retracting as we move through each phase. It's going to retract and move because the horn of the goat represents the militant power of Rome in the East. And when it's under attack, it's going to move. It's going to wane. It's going to retract in as Eastern Rome is weakened. So the first Turkish division, the first Turkish phase, were the Seljuks. Then there were the Mongols. Then there were the Tartars. And finally, there was the Ottomans. So each phase, the horn of the goat moves. That militant power, Eastern Rome, Byzantium, okay, it moves. Now, the zenith of the Ottoman Empire, this final phase, the fourth phase of the Turks, is the 29th of May, 1453, where we see a 21-year-old Ottoman Sultan called Mehmed II, and he's going to do what was deemed strategically impossible, right? He's going to conquer the Byzantium capital, which we now know to be Constantinople, 1453. And this young man did it. He conquered Constantinople, and the Hagia Sophia, that was the crown jewel of Christian Orthodoxy, was then converted to a mosque. Thus, the Ottoman Empire now is the inheritor of the territory that is called the King of the North. What we're seeing is a transfer of power through time. The King of the North was once Seleucus, then it became Roman, then it became Eastern Roman, and now it's become Ottoman. And Constantinople, its name was changed to Istanbul. And thus Constantinople, Byzantium, Eastern Rome fell. Or did it? We anticipate through Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, Daniel chapter 8, and Revelation chapter 16, that Constantinople will once again become Roman Christian, and Roman Christianity will be ruling in Constantinople at the time of the end. In other words, Rome isn't just going to find its way back to the territory called the King of the North, but Rome is going to find its way back into Turkey, into Constantinople, which today is called Istanbul. That's what we prophetically anticipate. The physical city of Constantinople did fall. I mean, the walls fell. and it was conquered. But the ideological, spiritual, and imperialistic legacy of Constantinople didn't fall. It lived. You see, well, during this time, there was a grand prince, and he lived in Moscow, and his name was Ivan III. And Orthodoxy looked to Ivan III as the legitimate successor of not just Constantinople, but Eastern Orthodox. He became the inheritor of Eastern Rome that we call Byzantium. So, for example, in the West, they were known as Caesars, the emperors, and in the East, they were called Tsars. Ivan III was the first Tsar outside of Constantinople, and he ruled in Moscow. He was literally called the new Tsar of the new city of Constantine, Moscow. He was Constantine's successor. So the spirit of Constantinople, the spirit of Byzantium, the spirit of Eastern Rome didn't die. It just migrated. And it migrated to Moscow. Just to make it even more clear, in 1452, Ivan III, the Prince of Moscow, the new Tsar of Eastern Rome, married a woman called Sophia. And Sophia just so happened to be the niece of the last emperor of Constantinople who died defending its walls. It was a union that would unite Moscow to the glorious past of Eastern Rome and Byzantium. It was hugely symbolic, and it continued the legacy of Eastern Rome in Moscow. So therefore, that militant power of Rome, which we identify through prophecy being the symbol of the horn of the goat, if the militant power has moved to now Moscow, then the horn of the goat has migrated with it. The horn of the goat is in Moscow. It's in Russia. Moscow became the heir of Byzantium, and it's the bastion and guardian of Orthodoxy. It's claimed the legacy of Constantinople. And history is going to tell us this. There was a monk called Philotheus. Look what he says. He says, 2 Romes have fallen, the third stands, and there will be no fourth. Thus, Moscow was born as the third Rome. It's known as being the third Rome because it's inherited the mantleship of Eastern Orthodox. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Moscow isn't in the east, is it? You wouldn't describe Moscow as being in the east. It's very much up north. So why is it called Eastern Orthodoxy? Because Orthodoxy developed in the Eastern Roman Empire. It was called Greek Orthodox because it all goes back to the horn of the goat, and the horn of the goat was originally Greece. It's just following it through. It was in Greece, it then became Rome, and now it's in Moscow. So just look at these, for example, these symbols. Russia adopted, in its iconography, the double-headed eagle. The double-headed eagle represents the 2 Romes, one in the west and one in the east, and it's ended up in Moscow. Moscow has a coat of arms with St. George slaying the dragon. Moscow is the defender of the faith, and the faith of Moscow is Orthodoxy. Moscow have also done this. Look what they've done. They've actually put on their churches the Orthodox cross above the crescent moon. Now, what's the crescent moon? What is that the symbol of? Well, that's the symbol of Islam. It's the Muslim icon, isn't it? The crescent moon. And the fact that the churches in Moscow, in Eastern Orthodox churches, they have the cross above the moon, it's parabolically telling us that they believed themselves to be greater than Islam. The Ottoman Empire. After all, it was the Ottomans who ransacked Constantinople. So even in their churches, they're seeking out retribution, aren't they? Justice, revenge. So this is why on Neb's feet, there are only 2 Romes. There's not 3 Romes, as we see that history is telling us. No, through the lens of Bible prophecy, there are only 2 Romes. 1 foot in Rome, in the west, and the other foot in the east, in Constantinople. So if there are 2 legs of Rome and 2 feet of Rome standing in the last days, that's telling us that Constantine needs to have Roman rulership at the time of the end. It needs to have Christian Roman rulership once more. So the question is this: who might you think is prophetically going to reclaim that land? Going to be where the power of the horn of the goat is. And the power of the horn of the goat is currently in Moscow, and it must eventually migrate south again to capture its ancestral and spiritual capital. And when it does, it will once again become the king of the north.
Thanks for staying with us for this report. We pray that the video report has provided some clarity to the situation in the Middle East. We encourage you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and select all so you never miss a new upload. Don't forget to like, share and drop a comment in the comment section. We love to hear your thoughts. Make sure you follow our playlist and never miss a new report. Until next time, God willing, this has been the Watchman Report, bringing perspective to current world news from a biblical standpoint. Don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps the channel grow. Drop a comment in the comment section and let us know what you thought, and make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new upload. Never miss. Please share it and spread the word. Thanks for watching. And remember to come back soon.